Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Stephen Haggerty. Today I'm joined by the co-founder and creative director of GirlDreamer, Amna Akhtar. How are you today, Amna? Amna, sorry.
Amna, yeah, no worries
Yeah,
at all. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm very good. As soon as I said your name, I was like, wait a minute, I've got the beginning of that right, and then the end bit. So Amna, all right.
Amna, that's it.
Welcome to
It
the
means
show.
peace, by the way.
Peace.
Yeah, it means
Oh,
peace.
love it, love it. I
Yeah,
mean, any name, like we were just saying about your ring, anything with a story
yeah,
or sort of a
yeah,
definition of some kind just makes it sit better.
yeah.
Always, always.
Yes, definitely.
But welcome to the show, and I guess on that note, co-founder of GirlDreamer,
Yeah.
what is it that you guys mean, and what is it that you guys do?
I like that you asked what is it that we mean. I'll get to that later. But what we do is we're a non-profit organisation based in Birmingham, but we've officially gone global this year, thanks
Woo.
to weirdly
Congratulations.
thanks to COVID. Thank you very much. But I suppose the idea that we kind of everybody went digital this year meant that we could attract so many different people from around the world that maybe before wasn't possible. But saying that we support the personal and professional development of young women of colour to tackle social inequality.
Love it. I love how straight to the point that definition is as well.
Yeah, in a
It's just like,
nutshell.
this is what we do, and we
Yeah,
own it. Like, you own your space, which is great.
yeah, that's
So I guess the obvious question to come up for me is, what was going on in your world and your co-founder's world that made you guys come together and think, right, let's create GirlDreamer and let's obviously make a difference, do some really great things in this world, because you've obviously seen that need for it, right?
yeah. Okay, I'll try and give you the refined
Hey, we've got
short
time.
edit.
Don't feel rushed. Don't feel rushed.
So back in 2012, I joined university. I didn't want to go, but my parents wanted me to have a degree because they were like, who's going to marry you if you don't have a degree? Come on, we've come here to this country, we want all our kids educated. But
No
I
pressure
just,
on you then.
yeah, no pressure. It wasn't, and of all things, I went to study nursing, which like you need to really be dedicated and
Yeah.
stuff. I felt really bad taking up someone's space, and I went in for a week. I barely got past Freshers Week, and I just thought, you know what, this isn't for me. So I dropped out and didn't tell my parents for 3 months and pretended to go to university every day. And in that time, I used to meet my best friend Kiran in this cafe, like a very just like, you know, that depressing cafe in The Apprentice. Like it was
Yeah.
it was really dingy, and we just sit there, and she was on a
Proper
gap year at the
builder's
time.
calf.
That's it, those polystyrene cups.
Yeah.
And we just sit there and you know, like we in college, like we went to college together. We didn't really hang out with a big group of friends. It was just like a few of us, and like me and Kieran gelled more than we did with others, and it was almost like we were on a different wavelength. And we'd always have conversations that were about the world, that were about life, that were much bigger than ourselves. And when she had finished her gap year at this point, and I was, you know, sitting in this cafe, and we were like, well, you know, what are we doing with our life? Like, where is this going, kind of thing? What do you want with your life? What do I want with mine? And then we realized in that moment that it was something bigger than ourselves. Like, we wanted to create like some sort of legacy. So we were like, you know, say we're not here, we don't know how long we're here on earth for. Like, it got deep.
The
What is it
cafe
that,
owner's probably thinking, what are these two going on about?
right? And then since 2012, like I dropped out, I spoke to my parents, you know, they were on board, and they could tell, like, you know, in those 3 months I was very depressed, and, you know, I explained it properly to them, and I was like, it's just not for me, and I'm going to try and figure out my path, but just bear with me, kind of thing. And we both joined a youth and education charity that worked in primary and secondary schools, mentoring kids in inner city areas. So that truly transformed us. And, you know, going back into school now as not a pupil, and kind of seeing it for what it is from like a teacher's and mentor kind of angle really made me realize a lot. And it was in that moment where we realized, you know, working with young people is where our passion lies, and, you know, they're the future, right? So for us, it made sense to kind of invest in that generation, so that by the time they are our age and they're out of uni, they know exactly what they want to do and where they're going. So fast forward to 2013, 14, sorry. So I left the charity. I had a clothing line at the time. And this kind of looked into empowering women. So kind of creating products that had huge pockets, because we all know how rubbish women's pockets are. Like it barely fits like a 50p in there. And now with the sizes of the phones, like it's just crazy. So I was looking at, modest and comfortable clothing for women. And I wanted to kind of take this brand to the next level, where like I'd host events and talk to women and kind of get their idea. But I realized some of those women just wanted a good hoodie or a good t-shirt, whereas the others were like really interested. So then I said to Kieran, why don't we take this a step further and like, really make something of this? So I kind of fell out of love of making the clothes, and I closed that company. And then it's in that year, 2016, GirlDreamer was born. So literally, when I mean we had no idea how to operate a business, like especially a non-profit. We just woke up one day, went on gov.uk and registered GirlDreamer, and literally for 6 months did nothing, like absolutely nothing. And then we realized, oh crap, we've got to do accounts soon. What the hell does that mean? So yeah, like it literally, we turned to Google, turned to YouTube, and since then learned everything that we've needed to know. We still use Google and YouTube now. So yeah, that's pretty much.
Let's face it.
Yeah, that's pretty much how GirlDreamer was born.
Talk to me about the journey from, let's say after that initial 6 months where you didn't really do anything, but when you finally came to the realization that actually let's do something with GirlDreamer, let's grow it. How was that growth for you guys over the last 3-4 years? Into obviously where you're at now, which is award winning. You've been nominated for so many things. There's such a great accolade of amazing things that you guys have done. How has that journey been in the last 4 years?
It's been very intense. I think
intense in a good way.
Yes and no. So okay. I think it's been a mixture, really. It's been everything. It's been a roller coaster. Like, roller coasters are great, but you're just crapping your pants at the same time. So I think the thing is, like, being so young at the time, we were like 26, I think, when we started GirlDreamer. So, and being in the third sector, like, you think charity, non-profit, like, I always used to think like people that start up charities and non-profits are mainly like middle-aged people who have kind of done corporate life. They've realized a lot, traveled the world and had a few epiphanies, and then they come back and then they start something that gives back. We kind of did it the opposite way, never kind of stepped foot in corporate, and just as these young 20-something-year-olds just started a non-profit organization that was really committed and devoted to making a difference for women of color. So I think the whole being young and a woman and of color in the sector has been quite difficult to navigate, and especially not having much of a business plan or a plan, just kind of, like I said, waking up one day and registering a company, and then coming face to face with like elite people and individuals that like high net worth individuals that want your finances and your projections for the next 10 years. And that was very overwhelming. And like the understanding the jargon and being at events and navigating that whole space was very difficult. I think.
Did you ever get frustrated with almost, it's kind of like the formalities of running a business, isn't it? The box ticking situation that you have to do.
Yes.
Did you ever feel like, obviously you are, but did you ever feel like it was just holding you guys back from the mission that you obviously wanted to do?
It's like you jumped into my mind. Yes, absolutely. 1,000 times. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, because we're part funded and part earn our own income, like with funding and the whole funding world, it's quite, part of it is like problematic because there's so many demanding things where, when you work with vulnerable communities, like sometimes the way that, I don't know, it feels very derogatory, like you're having to kind of, not so much beg, but you have to very much so prove yourself and prove your worth.
You have to go through a lot of justifications, I feel, from speaking to other people that run similar companies.
and then the people on the other side who are almost judging your like performance of your, how you're explaining why you do what you do and why it's important and valid. They have, it's almost like there's no connection to the community of people we work with, and knowing that we're the experts in those communities. Like, you know, as I was born and raised in one of the most inner city areas in Birmingham, and it was very difficult being there. And it was only when I was like 16 and we moved out the area into a more suburban area, I kind of realized, oh wow, like there's a different world out here. Like there's trees.
Know what you know.
Yeah, like there are trees in the world, and this smells good. So, you know, I really relate to the community, and I think the best part of the journey has been like connecting with other like-minded women and young people, and realizing like there's so many talented people out in the world, but if only they were given the opportunities and the access to those opportunities, you know, there'd be some pretty amazing people in the world.
Yeah, and I mean, you're one of those people that is obviously helping make that change, which is great. I'm curious to know, you're doing your best, which is all we ever ask of anyone. But looking back now, and I've been asking this question a lot with people. I guess maybe it's because the end of the year and people are quite reflective at this time of year anyway. But if you look back on the journey so far, is there sort of a single person or a single event that you look back and you're just ridiculously proud of, and that would never have happened if you hadn't of joined forces with your best friend and created GirlDreamer?
Can I give you two?
You can give me, two. Let's go with two.
Okay, I think one that's for not just myself but for the whole community is last year we raised £30,000 in 30 days.
Amazing.
And when I tell you, it literally like took the life out of us. On the 30th day, we were just lying dead on the floor because it took a lot of campaigning, and we didn't have this stuff planned months before. Like, we were doing this on the day, like live. And like I said, with everything with GirlDreamer, we've never really had a solid plan. We just do things, and through the miraculous universe supporting us and watching over us, things just come together. And I almost say this a lot in interviews, and people are like, wow, like, you do know you're a business owner, like, should you be saying this? But I think it's the truth, and it should be shared. And sorry, what was the question?
Well, I said a moment, you said two. One of those moments
yes.
Where you're with someone or an event that you're just ridiculously proud of.
I'm back on it. So
you're back on track. Yeah, you're back in the room.
We raised 30,000 in 30 days, and that was for a program that we run called Borders Without Borders. And that looks at sport for women of colour, specifically to tackle social inequality, social inactivity in areas. And we started in Birmingham in a park called Cannon Park. And I used longboarding as the first sport that we introduced, and then opened it up to surfing. And so many women of colour have never surfed before, never skated, never longboarded. And I really wanted to bring that to Birmingham.
Where can you surf in Birmingham?
So we didn't actually surf in Birmingham, but we took the girls down to Newquay,
Amazing.
Which is the home of British surfing, and it was phenomenal.
I just had this vision of you guys trying to surf on a river or something like
that. A canal, no.
Yeah.
No. So that was amazing because, you know, raising that amount of money in just 30 days and kind of having to prove to people that this can work and this is needed, and the power of sport and how it's tied to leadership and how sport's just tied to life. And the sports that we chose, like skating, longboarding, surfing, and snowboarding, all connected to nature, like, and taking women of colour up and down the country from Scotland to Newquay to the Midlands. It just, and
what did you learn about yourself from achieving that, and then subsequently seeing people in Newquay surfing the way they've never surfed before, or perhaps they've never even seen a surfboard before?
Yeah. It was mind-blowing. Like, I have a fear of the ocean. So a dream of mine has been to surf my entire life in California. I'm not quite there yet, so I'm still in Birmingham. But when I wanted to launch the campaign, I was invited out to Newquay by someone who owns a surf school there, and they gave me a session. And when I tell you I was petrified of seeing the ocean, like, I don't know, like, it just made me feel all sorts of emotions, but I did it. And when I took the girls down as well, and they were all from either London, Leeds, Bradford, Birmingham, and very kind of in city girls, right? So when we went down to Newquay, just the landscape in itself just kind of was such a refreshing break for them. I think one or two of them had never really been to Newquay. Well, I think many of them didn't. But then seeing them surf and take on something like surfing, because it's very demanding on the body as well.
Yeah.
Like I considered myself quite fit before. Like I'd work out every other day.
It's a hidden full body workout.
Right. And like when they were like, okay, you need to paddle and jump up onto the board. And I'm like, well, who's doing that? Because this core that I thought that I had, like a good 4 to 6 pack, really didn't show up.
Did you manage to get up on the board? Did you?
I did, but I just fell right off, Stephen. And yeah, it was a bit. Yeah, I think that was a big highlight for me. The second thing is, for me and Kieran both, was meeting Meghan Markle this year. I think that was a personal one because someone that we look up to hugely, and having that opportunity to meet her and Harry, of course, in Buckingham Palace, sitting up close and personal with them and like laughing and joking and talking about serious issues too, was just literally a bucket list moment as well.
I bet.
And it wouldn't have happened if we weren't on this journey. If we didn't register that morning on gov.uk.
And this is the thing, isn't it? When we look back on our achievements or whatever we're looking back on, we can always pinpoint certain things happening for certain moments. And, you know, if you and Kieran didn't come together and register GirlDreamer, then that may have happened in some form, but not in the form that it did happen, which is always amazing to see. How do you reflect on that? How do you sort of take on board your own successes as a founder, but also as someone that is obviously also relatable to the people that you're trying to help?
I think I spend a lot of my personal time on my own. So although people might see Kieran and me together a lot because we work together and like we're best friends, but I don't have a huge group of friends or a big circle that I keep. I have founder friends that we kind of catch up every so often, and it's always about work and like entrepreneurial stuff. But when I'm not at work and like I'm digesting all the things along this journey, I do spend a lot of time alone, and I reflect on that. I journal, I meditate, and, you know, I have a vision board and I'm constantly updating it and rearranging it. And I'm very conscious and intentional about things that are happening in my life and things that I want to happen next. And because I'm so intentional about it, it really makes me be aware in the moment when those successes are happening, that, you know, this is something that you wanted like 6 months ago to happen, like enjoy it. And although like sometimes in those moments, like meeting Megan, like you're so nervous and like your palms are sweating and stuff, and you think you've got it and you're bossing it, but like you're really nervous.
Then you watch the video back and you're like, oh my God, why did I do that? I never watch the videos back. I can't. It's just, I've done a TEDx talk and I've never watched it.
You've never watched it? I've never watched it. And people come up to me like, I really liked it. And I'm like, I don't even know what I said. Please don't watch that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's spending time in my own energy and space is something that helps me to reflect.
What do you think the benefit for you personally doing that allows you to focus on the business and the mission itself, but what do you think the benefit of specifically the journaling and meditation, you know, your mantra, I can and I will, that's such a lovely mantra to live by. What are the benefits for you for that?
I think it does amazing things for my mental health. Being in this space, this position, this sector, this role, at such a young age. I mean, I'm going to be 30 next year, but I'm not going to be that young anymore. But I was young when I started this, and I didn't have so many good practices that would kind of balance me. And I was very much like on the hustle journey where it's like 18 hours a day, forget sleep, like sacrifice sleep, don't do this, forget eating. And, you know, it was that Instagram hustle journey, right? And I realized very quickly into the journey that was not for me. And although it looked glamorous, and it may be as well, and it may work for many others, but it wasn't something for me. And I had to realize what my own preferences were. And I think the things that it does is allows me to be very conscious about how I'm operating GirlDreamer and how I'm navigating and directing us. and the spaces in which we're going next. You know, being a creative director, you have to almost be in the future a lot of times, and then almost like wait for people to get there and welcome them when they're there. But you're on your own there when you're planning and building and doing these creative things. And having that space to meditate and journal creates a lot of room for creativity.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing it does for me.
And have you always done that, or is that something that you learned and tested along the way?
I haven't always done that, but I did start very young. I started at 19. It was actually Kieran and her mum who introduced me to the idea of meditation. I think it was Kundalini meditation. And since then, I've just literally gone
It's just part
full
of your life.
throttle. Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, you mentioned about the future there, so naturally brings me on to my next question in terms of what have you and Kieran and GirlDreamer got next planned? Now you've gone global, you know, you have to go big. So what have you guys got planned next?
Oh my God, I love this
Big
conversation. Like, it makes me, it gives me the shivers in a good way. It's because I'm there on my own all the time. Like, and I'm constantly bringing Kieran and saying like, okay, this is what's going to happen next. And it's always me explaining. But yeah, I think the next things are, it's a whole new digital space at GirlDreamer. So we've used 2020 and the quietness of 2020 on front facing. So because we've not really had the opportunities or the ability to kind of do many in-person things with our community, we've kind of used that time to go inwards and plan for the future. So that's going to include a lot of new changes and updates with GirlDreamer, hopefully going 100% digital. So and you know, honing in on that global audience as well, and tailoring content for our communities from the Middle East, Asia, America. Yeah, I can't give away too much because it's top secret yet. But
did you ever think that you would be global? Did you ever think that you would be working with, you know, communities outside of the UK and seeing those changes happen?
Yes, because it
always
was
in the plan.
It was always a dream. I want to live abroad eventually. I want to travel all over the world, and I just saw it as a part of the lifestyle for me and my work as well. And I want to do GirlDreamer. I'm saying this live on your podcast. I want to do it for the rest of my life, and I want to take my time with it. And I know in today's kind of age and with young people, we want to shoot to success and just get there fast and just do it now. But I do want to take my time with it.
But it's funny, isn't it? Because you mentioned earlier about, you know, when you started off and it was that hustle mentality, and actually when you did start off, it was very much sort of that Gary V videos everywhere where it's saying like, if you don't work 24 hours a day, you're going to fail, all that kind of crap. And now a couple of years on, very few people I know in terms of the founders world do actually work to that manner, because like you said, it's super unhealthy. It's actually more of a disservice to your business than a service. But one of the things I think that people learn perhaps through that process is kind of why they're doing what they're doing, and actually it moves from people from that quick success that they perhaps originally thought to what you're at now in terms of actually I'm going to be working with GirlDreamer for the rest of my life, and I suspect that's in some form, and your forms will change throughout that as well. But it's also because you've obviously got such an amazing mission and purpose, which is so important, not just to your business, but to any business out there that needs to succeed. So I guess the question from this is that mission and purpose, is it always evolving? And I guess, will you think there's ever a point where you go, nailed it, like we're done, might drop the mic, we're out of here?
Yeah, I think, okay, so one of the things that we never had was a business plan, funnily. But we're running a business, and I think we're doing a pretty good job at it. And I think not having a business plan, because when I say we had no idea, I genuinely mean it, like from the pits of my heart, like the bottom depths. I think not having it had its cons, because we didn't know what the hell we were doing, and we had no idea, no guidance, nothing to go back to and say, okay, there was no foundation. But the pro of not having one was that we weren't kind of we weren't constrained by like these set things, and like we had so much creative freedom to just explore. And I think that's what we did for the first year or two. And only since the end of last year, like I'd say autumn last year, like we've really like nailed in on our mission and stuff. But we are a very live organization and a live company. Like we don't class ourselves as like having like I don't know, like the 10 commandments of GirlDreamer or something, and then kind of putting them into the bottom of the filing cabinet and checking up on it every 5 years. We almost are very much attached to the company as well. So it's very live,
very value-based, value-led company.
Absolutely. And I think we will always be evolving the mission and staying relevant and with the times, and responding to the needs of our community as well. So if they change in the next year or two, like we need to adapt with that.
Definitely. And that's the key with any business of any stature. It is about adapting. And the 2020 word seems to be pivot, and I think if you can't pivot in this year, you're always going to struggle with it.
Yeah, just think of Ross Geller from Friends with that pivot scene.
Pivot. Ross, what does pivot even mean? Classic Friends is amazing. I mean, one of my final questions to you is, I guess, if you could do it all again, is there anything that you would change to get to where you have got today? Or are you a believer that sort of everything that has happened for a reason, you wouldn't be where you are today without even the negatives perhaps have happening?
I think, yes, I am a believer in, it all happened this way. But I think the one thing that I may change or update is to have some sort of a plan. Because I'm saying it again, there was just nothing.
But you have a plan now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
Good. Yeah. How confident are you with that plan? Are you now a super planner? Have you got whiteboards everywhere? Do you know what you're doing for the next 12 months? Or are you still like, let's plan, but you know what, we're pretty much winging it still, because, spoiler alert, most people are winging it.
Yeah, the thing is, like, because we winged it for the first kind of 24 months, like, I kind of enjoy that. And I realize that it's not all just about having a plan, like a concrete base. Like, I almost like the feeling of it being like quite malleable, like, it's quite flexible. So it's a cross between having a strong plan and a structure, but it being flexible enough for us to kind of.
So you need the framework.
Yeah.
But what goes into it and how you make that framework a reality is up to
it's like a bouncy castle. Like, it's a structure, right? But you can have fun on it.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I'm going to steal that one. And if you spoke to anyone that is sort of any of my coaching clients or anything, it's like I'm always banging on about analogies. Every other word is
oh my
analogy.
God, me too. Yeah,
has to be. It's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
So my final question for you is, how can people support you? How can people find more about you guys? And how can people follow you?
Yeah, so girldreamer.co.uk. Just head over. So yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of new things happening in the new year. So it's maybe quiet for now. Please subscribe to the newsletter, follow us on socials. All the links are on the website. You can follow me personally on Aesthetically Amna on Instagram. And yeah, just support us, follow us, stay on the journey with us, and we'll keep you updated.
Listen, well done on everything that you've done within GirlDreamer so far, but also best of luck with the global domination that you have planned. And for some reason, I have no doubt that you guys are going to achieve some amazing things. And I would love to chat to you again in a year, 2 years' time, and ask you that same question about sort of those moments that when you look back on, because I'm sure that there's going to be some new moments that you're going to not even have planned or even in the framework that are going to happen.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for sharing your story. It's been so much fun.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone else for watching and listening. This has been Founders 365.